Welcome back to another episode of the How to Sell podcast. I'm your host, Luigi Prestinenzi. Just want to say thank you for showing up. If you're a long-time listener, we're grateful that you show up each and every week to support our community. And if you're a first-time listener, welcome. We hope you take away some actionable insights that'll help you sell more. Now, this week we have a very specific topic, which is going to help you save time and build more pipeline. But before we jump into that episode, I need to bring the co-host, the worst co-host, the worst salesperson, and the worst marketer of all time. Dave, welcome to the How to Sell podcast.
Well, that was a lovely intro, Louis. Thank you for that. And if you are listening for the first time, I have cracked it enough with Louis that's a little bit of a sneak peek that I've started my own podcast. So it's the TLDR dropped once a week, and it's to reference this deep dive episodes that we do. And Louis not on it, so it's probably going to be your favorite listen for the week. So Louis, stuff you. I'm going solo.
Well, if you do want to get some quality episodes, just go back to the start of the How to Sell podcast. It's when I was solo, guys, and you just get to hear me with some great guests. But anyway, this is not a roasting session on Dave. We can't roast him. As much as our audience love it, we know that you love it because you message me and say, you know what, I love hearing you roast Dave. Can you do it more?
I'm a little bit concerned about that, to be honest, but it's probably for another episode.
Yeah, well, you know, we're trying to be inclusive, Dave. We're trying to include everybody in roasting you. But it's a hot topic, right? Because with the blink of our eyes, Dave, it's almost February. A month's down. We've only got 11 months to go in 2024. And before too long, we'll be talking about February's down. And one of the things that will continue to drive performance in any salesperson's world is their pipeline. So that's why this week's episode is such a timely one, because we're going to be focusing on how to build the right routine and the right rhythm to drive pipeline performance.
Yeah, it's critical, right? So like the things we're going to cover today are the things where, you know, especially the habit forming, like every morning or day, whenever you're blocking out the time to do your prospecting, even when you feel like you don't want to do it, you're not in the mood, you've had a crap start to the day or crap evening, it's still going through the motions and doing it, because even if you're having a poor day, the habit of going through the process and actually doing the activity does help you. It does help build your pipeline. It's like going to the gym when you don't feel like it. You're still making that progress, right?
Yeah. It's credits in the bank. And that's the first takeaway from this episode. It's the importance of preparation, right? I don't think there's enough spoken about why we should be preparing. And our good friend Craig Ballantyne, who is a productivity expert, talks about preparation shouldn't happen the morning of your day. It should happen the day before. Like, you should be really thinking about what are the key things I need to do tomorrow, and allow yourself time in your diary at the end of every day to review those tasks to make sure that you're baking them into your following day, right? And I think that's the first key takeaway. That if you want to be more in control, start by being more proactive the day before, so that way you can get the most out of, you know, the next day and not start in a reactive mode, in a reactive mindset.
And that also helps switching off for the day as well. It's know that when you're planning for the following day, whether it be before you finish work or in the evening, it then helps you set your mindset to a frame of, I'm now in chill out mode. I've planned my next day. I'm prepared. You feel at ease. You'll even find that you'll sleep better because you're not thinking about all the things you have to do the next day, because you've got a plan to attack, right? So it's Absolutely. Great for yourself, great for your family, and great for your sleep, which is one of the things that, you know, we haven't spoken about a lot, but ensuring that you get a good night's sleep does help the attitude the next day. And I found that once I was prepared for the next day, that anxiety of all these things I have to do went away.
That's a key takeaway. Maybe that's a future episode we should discuss, right? So the importance of recovery, the importance of sleep, the importance of, you know, really giving yourself the best environment to perform at a certain level. So we're talking about Craig Ballantyne's tip of preparing the day before. The second thing we want to discuss is, you know, when it comes to prospecting, time killers is when sellers start to prospect and they research and build their list during their prospecting time. So let's just go back a step. You set some time to prospect, whatever time it is, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, or 10 o'clock. You start dialing, and all of a sudden, you call someone, they don't answer. You got to sit there, create the email, send them the LinkedIn note, and then you go and look for somebody else to call, right? And before too long, you might have allocated an hour to prospect. And in that hour, you've only called a couple of people and reached out to a couple of people. Why? Because your list wasn't prepared in advance. And this is a very important concept to discuss. We talk about preparation. Preparation is the foundation for success when it comes to selling. In order to get the most out of your prospecting efforts and get that return on the effort that you're making with prospecting, preparing your list in advance is key. So identifying your ICP, being clear about your buyer personas, doing a level of research, whether you're building it on Sales Nav or Apollo, etc., and then actually building out that list so that when you do start to prospect, you can work through that list one by one.
And there's ways that you can really do that in a lot more efficient way. So Louis mentioned one of the tools there, Apollo.io. We use it within the business. It's a great way if you're enrolling a list of contacts that are ready to go the night before. On the screen when you're prospecting, it then brings up research about the company, right? Yeah. So it's all these points of saving you time. If you think about if you're doing this on the fly and you're researching company X, you go onto their website, then all of a sudden you get a notification, you go check LinkedIn, you go check Facebook, you're going to get distracted. But by limiting the amount of activities that you need to do during your researching process, you're avoiding that chance of being distracted by other third-party tools and just life in general, because everything is always fighting for your attention.
Absolutely. And, when it comes to research, you might be, and everyone's different, depending on what you sell, who you're selling to, there's probably 2 or 3 key things that you're looking for. So when you're building your list and you're preparing in advance, define what are those things that you're looking for. So then you've got that list, you're ready. You've also got your cadence ready to go as well. So in the event they don't answer, and remember, nearly 90% of calls we make won't get answered on the first attempt. So you're going to leave a voicemail, you're going to send a LinkedIn note and an email. Have those templates pre-built so that way you can just essentially contextualize it based on the ICP, the persona, the trigger, whatever level of personalization or reason for your reach out. But you can do that ahead of time so that you can simply go to your playbook, cut, paste, contextualize, send, and what will start to happen in an hour's session, you'll actually get through a lot more, right? So that's key. And what we're actually saying is the best way to get a return on your effort when it comes to prospecting is to time block. And you're probably getting a theme here, right? This is a structured way. There's routine, there's habit, there's planning. So you time block to research so that you build your list. You time block to build your cadence according to the list. Then you time block to reach out to that prospect or to reach out to that list of prospects. So what you're doing now, your calendar is going to start to see a particular rhythm, right? So this is something that when we evaluate high performers all over the world, there's a consistent theme about them. Their calendars are very, very similar, right? There is a consistent theme to their calendars, and they're color coordinating their calendars for key tasks that they know will deliver a certain result.
Yeah, and I think consistency is a key word there. And reliability, right? So like I often say to people, even if we're engaging in a new sort of contractor to work with us and they're worried about, hey, do you guys have the time to join the calls? My comment back is always, I'm so reliable, it's boring, right? Unlike Louis, who is the most unreliable person to join calls ever. And so we'll leave that for another time. But be reliable, be consistent with yourself to the point where it's boring, to the point where people aren't following you up. Are you going to join this call? Because that does compound. Just like investing and adding funds to a growing, investment that compounds over time, like going to the gym when you're doing reps and sets in the gym that are compounds. Louis misses that as well because he's got his pencil arms. But everything that you do there, by being reliable, by being consistent, I love that, being consistent in your approach day to day, even when you don't feel like it. How many times have you woken up being, you want to go for that run, you want to go to the gym, and you just go, I can't be bothered, and then you regret it later. The same thing comes for prospecting. Then you wonder why you miss 1-2 days, then you wonder why your pipeline's getting thin. You need to be consistent and reliable. It's more out of respect for yourself as well.
That's a really good point. That also reinforces the need to time block these key tasks. But it's not just about time blocking and then justifying why something else becomes important when that comes up, right? Because that's another thing that I see is you time block. You have the best intention. You're going to prospect at 10 o'clock and then all of a sudden, oh, my boss has asked me to send something. Oh, my clients reached out to me. Oh, something else has come up. And what happens is that takes priority. The way in which I want you to think about the time blocking aspect, the prospecting time that you set, think about it like it's the time you're setting with your best, most important client. Because if it is your most important client, you won't change it at the last minute because something else has come up. And if you start to use that mentality, what will happen? You'll start to build that into your operational rhythm. And this is key. It's not about saying, well, my clients come first. Yes, they do. But if you were meeting with a client and somebody asked you to meet at 10 o'clock, but you had that meeting with a client, you wouldn't necessarily say, I'll move that. You'd say, I've got a meeting then. How about half an hour later or half an hour before, whatever time that you suggest? Most of the times, they'll comply. If there's an emergency and you have to move it, okay. But it shouldn't be a consistent way where every week you're having to change the time block that you've allocated, right? Because that might mean maybe you're setting it at the wrong time. Maybe there's something else. So we can go down another path today, but I don't think we have time, Dave, around, productivity, do it, delegate it, dump it, diarize it, thinking about how you manage tasks. But I think the key thing for you listening to this episode, if you want to get more out of your week, because again, a lot of the anxiety, a lot of the tension, a lot of the stress in sales comes from not being in control. This is about bringing a proactive approach, being very proactive with our mindset and saying, I'm going to take control of my week. I'm going to schedule key tasks that really matter. And remember, the 3 things that really matter in selling, it's you're creating, you're progressing, and you're closing. And you need to be time blocking across all the stages of your funnel in order to hit your number, because this is a performance-based role, right? All the other things we do, great. But if we're not delivering, if we're not producing results, then we're not meeting the criteria of our role.